Barkley left side, deep hole, Saquon Barkley! Uh-oh! Barkley! Goodbye!
Second play from scrimmage, Saquon Barkley against the Giants yesterday, 65 yards and a touchdown. They went on to beat the Giants 38-20. They're 6-2 heading into their bye week. Pete M writes, Kevin, you guys are done. My birds are back. This isn't 2023. It's 2024. Better get to 10 wins or no playoff soup for you. Well, thank you, Pete. There's a long way to go in this season. Philly looks good heading into their break. 2 big-time wins in which the offense has come alive the last 2 weeks against Minnesota and the Giants. When they come back, they get Green Bay at Lambeau, Detroit at home, and we'll see. Long way to go. Good morning, everybody. It's a game day. Washington at Kansas City tonight. Not exactly the matchup we were anticipating when the schedule came out in April. The Chiefs actually are just 4-3. That's what their record is. And they need a win as the Denver Broncos are rolling in the AFC West, beating Dallas yesterday. They are a game and a half behind Denver. Still 2 left with the Broncos this year. But KC trying to get to 5-3 as their team approaches the halfway mark. Washington at 3-4, trying to get to 500 as it approaches the 500 mark. 8:15 kick tonight at Arrowhead. Washington's first trip to Arrowhead since 2017, when they also played on Monday Night Football against the Chiefs and lost on what was a Harrison Butker field goal with 8 seconds to go. Had a shot to win that game. They didn't. These are 2 totally different teams. That team was quarterbacked by Alex Smith in the last season that the Chiefs had Alex Smith starting before they turned it over to the Patrick Mahomes Hall of Fame run that started the following year. Washington went into the tank the rest of the year. They became one of the most injured teams in the league in 2017 and didn't recover until last year as a franchise, winning 12 games, 2 in the postseason, and getting to its first NFC title game since 1991. It's amazing how many people have forgotten that last year even happened, and they may forget even more after tonight, because I can't sell you on a win over the Chiefs. Although, interestingly, the line just keeps coming down. A lot of sharp money on Washington tonight at Kansas City. That line got to 13. I see it at 10.5 now in a lot of spots. Washington is getting, according to Dan Quinn on Saturday, they will have Terry McLaurin back tonight. Thank God. They will have Deebo Samuel back tonight. They may be, however, without Daron Payne tonight, who was banged up. Ben Standing will join us at 12, and we'll get the latest on who he thinks is in and who is out tonight. Of course, we do know that Jaden Daniels will not play tonight. That is something Washington announced early in the week, unlike Baltimore, who led Chicago into believing that Lamar Jackson was going to be the starting quarterback all week long. It looks like the Ravens are going to pay a stiff penalty for their injury reporting last week on Lamar Jackson. But Washington will go into Arrowhead with Marcus Mariota tonight. Marcus Mariota 2-0 as a starting quarterback at Arrowhead. Does that matter at all? A little bit, actually. Arrowhead's one of the, if not the most intimidating environments, best home field advantages, most difficult for a road team venue in the league. And Mariota's got experience in not only going in there with 2 Tennessee teams, but winning 19-17 early in his career. And then the famous playoff game in which this was also that 2017 season in which Alex Smith was quarterbacking in his final game, as it turned out, as a Kansas City Chief quarterback. And the Chiefs led 21-3 at halftime. And Marcus Mariota, with a little bit of help from Derrick Henry, who ran wild in the second half, rallied to shock Kansas City at Arrowhead and win that playoff game 22-21. In that game, Mariota actually completed a touchdown pass to himself. The ball got batted back in his direction. He caught it and ran it in for a touchdown as part of the comeback. Mariota gets his third start of the season, and tonight, at certainly on the road, the most challenging start of his 3 starts this season. The Chiefs are rolling. They've won 2 in a row, 4 of the last 5. They absolutely bludgeoned the Las Vegas Raiders last week, something that Marcus Mariota did too earlier in the season. As we talked about last week, it's one of the oddest and most lopsided box scores I have ever seen in an NFL game. They had 30 first downs to the Raiders' 3. They ran 77 offensive snaps to the Raiders' 30. The 30 offensive snaps were the third fewest since the merger in 1970 for any team. They outgained them 432 to 90-something, and the final score was really not indicative of how lopsided the game was, 31-0. Kansas City just ran the clock out in the fourth quarter. I said last week, this was the equivalent if it had been a CYO, 6th grade basketball game, they would have gone to the running clock in the second half. Many of you know what that means. This is a different match for Kansas City tonight than the Raiders were last week. Yes, Washington is a different team and a better team and a much more difficult match than the Raiders were last week. We can talk about how bad the defense is and how much Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and Travis Kelce and Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice, who's back, etc., are probably licking their chops to face this defense that gave up an ungodly number of yards and points last week against the Cowboys. But it's still not the Raiders that they faced last week. Washington's still an interested team. I think a well-coached team for the most part. But this is an uphill battle that is tough to sell on, a win. Can they play competitively tonight? They can. And look, we have seen in the NFL so many times, and it happens certainly, once, twice a week. Look at the Jets yesterday. The unexpected happens in the NFL. Every week, these teams are much closer in talent than they are in college. There's a fine line between these teams, talent-wise, and a couple of mistakes, a couple of, good bounces, and all of a sudden you've got yourself a monumental upset. Back in 2014, Colt McCoy took a Washington Redskin team to Dallas for Monday Night Football. They were a 10.5-point underdog, which is exactly where the line is right now, and pulled off a stunning upset with Colt McCoy as the backup quarterback playing at a very high level on that night. Something like that, of course, is in play. If you've watched the NFL, not just our team, over a long period of time, you know it's possible. But it's a hard sell right now. It's a hard sell not because Mariota's in for Daniels, although that makes it a harder sell. The hardest part of the sell is how are you going to get off the field defensively? You have become one of the laughingstocks of the league defensively. And the Chiefs are healthy. They've got Rashee Rice back. Rashee Rice, if you go back and watch the Raiders, which I did over the weekend game, he got targeted, I think, more times in that game than he had been targeted in his entire career. He had 10 targets in the game, 7 catches for 42 yards and 2 touchdowns in his return. They don't have, the Chiefs don't, without Rice, a true number one. Yes, Xavier Worthy and Thornton, number 80, can fly. They have great speed on the field. Hollywood Brown, but they don't have a number one, or didn't until Rashee Rice came back. He is a true number one. He's a difference maker. He is a route runner. He is exceptional after the catch. He can get separation. Washington can't cover in man. I can't imagine they're going to play much man coverage tonight. How do you play man coverage against a team with that much speed and then a guy like Rashee Rice? I don't think you can do it. And then a quarterback, if you turn your back to him, will have a field day. I'll give you my keys to an upset over the Chiefs. I'm not feeling it tonight. In some of these situations in the past, I'd feel it. And look, if Jaden were on the field, I'd say anything is possible. I do think that offensively, they can have some success tonight. And that is really if they're going to pull off the stunner, they're going to pull off the inside straight. It starts with what they do on offense. And I'll get to that when I get to my keys to a win over the Kansas City Chiefs. 3-5 is not going to feel good tomorrow morning, but it is a built-in expectation, and it won't end the season. And I'm just giving you fair warning right now. It doesn't matter what tonight looks like. There's no chance I'm coming in here tomorrow morning and telling you that I don't think they have a chance to turn their season around. The NFC was dominating the AFC in all of its head-to-heads, early in the season. Well, yesterday, the AFC bit back. They went 6-1 in what turned out to be, I guess, that's a lot of, intra-conference games. A lot of them yesterday. First of all, you had the Chargers over the Vikings on Thursday night. You had the Dolphins over the Falcons. You had the Bills over the Panthers, the Ravens over the Bears, the Texans over the 49ers, the Broncos over the Cowboys. And then last night, the Packers got one back for the NFC, beating the Steelers. So it's 6-1 going into tonight. If the Steelers had won that game last night, and there was one play in that game. When we get to around the NFL, if you didn't stay up and watch this game, there was an egregious missed call early in the third quarter that completely flipped the game. Now, the Steelers are terrible on defense, but they were on their way, the AFC was, to the greatest and most lopsided Sunday or weekend to date ever in matchups between the two conferences. But I just bring it up because earlier in the year, the NFC was dominating the AFC, and then the NFC took a lot of losses. There's a long way to go in this season. We don't know what it will look like a month from now, let alone 2.5 months from now. And that's basically what we still have in the season before it is over. So there's no way tomorrow morning, off of a loss to the Chiefs, am I going to think about throwing the towel in on this season. Too much football to go, but this certainly seems like a tough spot. But again, the good news is they won't be as impotent offensively with lost bodies. They're getting two critical pieces back tonight. What will they look like? Well, Debo's less removed from playing. Terry's now over a month since he last played. But getting one of them back would have been huge. Getting both of them back tonight will be a big help for Marcus Mariota. But they got to do more than just think about getting Debo and Terry the ball. There is a formula, I think, for an upset, and I'll spell it out for you coming up in the next segment. Max, let's get to a what do you got, if you don't mind. Brian Kelly fired. $54 million buyout after the James Franklin $50 million buyout. Insane numbers when you talk about these athletic departments. I live near someone who is on the board at Penn State, and it's funny, I don't think I've shared this story, but the day before Franklin got fired, was walking the dog in the neighborhood, ran into this person, and she said, no, well, we would never pay $50 million to have him exit. There'd have to be some sort of negotiated buyout. No, they paid it because they had a donor who stepped up to pay it. And I'm sure that'll be the case with LSU as well. I actually think Brian Kelly's a good coach. I do. But man, that just never seemed like the right fit from the moment that he walked in and faked that Southern accent. It just didn't work out. The two seasons that he had Jaden Daniels, they were so good offensively, but their defense was so bad. He could have bought himself a few years if they had had a defense and won a national championship with Jaden, because they were certainly among the best offensive teams in the country. But in the game Saturday night, when they got run out of the building in the second half by Texas A&M, because they were up at halftime, LSU was 18-14 against the number 3 team in the country. I want to correct something that Denton and I have talked about when we've done some college football segments. I have not been a Marcel Reed fan from Texas A&M. Going back to last year, really, I just thought he was one of these guys that is an athlete. The guy that played at A&M a few years ago, Bond was his last name. Was Kellen his first name? Kellen Bond? Do you remember who I'm talking about, Max?
I do know I believe that's right.
He got drafted by Minnesota, and literally, within 3 weeks, they knew he couldn't play. Look up if I've got that last name, the first name right. Last name was Bond.
No, that's the kicker.
What was it?
I see Randy Bond is the kicker for A&M, but that's not right.
Texas A&M quarterback from about 4 years ago. So I thought Marcel Reed was that guy. I thought he was super athletic,
Are you talking
could
about
make
Kellen
plays
Mond?
with his legs. Say it again.
Kellen Mond?
Kellen Mond. I
There it
said
is.
Bond. Kellen Mond. Thank you. Kellen Mond. I thought he was Kellen Mond. Like college quarterback that can get results because he's just an outrageous athlete, but he's never going to be a good passer because he doesn't see it, doesn't process it. Marcel Reed, I was wrong about. Now, he threw 2 bad picks in the first half, but this dude is ridiculous as an athlete and as a creator, and now he has gotten much better as a passer. He's completing 62% of his passes this year. He's 17 interceptions, over 6 picks, and his rushing ability and his playmaking, his off-schedule ability. There is a lot of Lamar in Marcel Reed. I'm not going to say he is Lamar more so than he's Jaden. Jaden was a much more polished passer coming into the league than Lamar was. I think Reed's got a shot to be the next Lamar. Coming in, being the dynamic runner, but improving as a passer. Not so bad as a passer that you can't put him on the field. That team's exceptionally well coached, too, with Elko. They are really, really good. But Marcel Reed, man, wow. What a game he had. What a second half he had. And that team rolled past LSU. Rarely in Death Valley do you tune into a fourth quarter on a Saturday night and basically the building is near empty. They got outscored 21-0 in the third quarter. They were down 35-18, I think it was at that point, and it was over. So, yeah. One other quick, what do you got? Because I just saw this morning. Because who pays attention to the NBA on an NFL Sunday? I mean, I know I was paying attention to the Wizards, and I watched a little bit, flipping back and forth a little bit. Okay, they're not on YouTube TV, so it hurts me. So I do have it on the, on the Monumental thing. Yes, I did that, so I could see, watch some of these young players play. They got outscored in the second half, 88-51, and lost to the Hornets 139 to 113. I really do like Trey Johnson. Loved him coming out in the draft, as you guys know. And Keyshawn George, after having the game of his career the other night, had a bit of a step-back game. I didn't watch a lot of this game last night, but what I saw this morning was that the Lakers beat the Kings last night. No Doncic. He was hurt. No LeBron. Austin Reeves scored 51 points in an NBA game. Austin Reeves wasn't even drafted, people, out of Oklahoma 4 years ago. You talk about the right 5 years ago, whatever it was. You talk about the right team to get on. And we've seen some of his hellacious games. I mean, he is just a flat out baller. But seriously, for any of you out there, did any of you see him capable of getting 51 in a game? I think I went back and looked at it this morning, and he had like 40 plus in one game last year. 51 to lead the Lakers without LeBron and without Doncic to a win. He was 12 of 22 from the floor, 6 of 10 from behind the arc. He was 21 of 22 from the free throw line. He also had 11 rebounds and 9 assists and 3 steals. Whew. Austin Reeves can play, man. Just flat out can play. 51 for Austin Reeves. That's crazy. All right, when we come back, my keys to a win over the Chiefs tonight. And we'll open it up for calls if you want to weigh in. 301-230-0980. 301-230-0980. Is it doable tonight? And if so, how? Phone lines are open. I'll give you my keys to an upset tonight at Arrowhead when we return. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the Team980.com. Okay. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Is it doable tonight? And if so, how? Yeah, the line keeps coming down. That means, some sharp bettors taking Washington plus the big number that has brought it down. Does that mean they're going to win outright? No. All right. Look, this is a hard sell, and I typically can figure out in the NFL, because it happens all the time, a lot of ways to pitch a potential upset. Washington's not one of those dismal teams at the end of the year that truly has no shot. You get to that, point in the season in which teams are playing out the string and somebody else is playing for something, and you can find a way where maybe that team can cover, but they can't necessarily win outright, although even that happens on occasion. Is it doable tonight? It's doable, but man, everything has to go their way. Washington can pull it off tonight if, number one, they shorten the game. And by shortening the game, I think to do that, they've got to run the football tonight. KC is 4th in the league in time of possession. Washington is 28th. You lose time of possession tonight by, say, 33-27, 34-26. You got no shot. No shot at all. You need to flip the script on time of possession tonight, because I don't see a lot of big explosives that you end up scoring in super short order against a Steve Spagnuolo defense. But I'll tell you what you can do. You can run no huddle to keep defensive personnel that you want on the field, but not snap it with 15 seconds to go on the play clock. These are some of the things that they've got to think about. In terms of complementary football, Cliff Kingsbury, Dan Quinn, Joe Witt Jr., they got to understand they have a major problem defensively. They can't stop anybody. Anybody decent, they cannot stop. And now they're without arguably their best defensive player in Dorrance Armstrong the rest of the year. There aren't many solutions to becoming even, a less terrible defensive team. So you've got to think in terms of, I know we like up tempo. I know we like to, gas the other team's defense. We like to keep them in the packages that we have prepared for. And you can get to the line of scrimmage, but nothing says you have to snap it with 19 seconds left on the play clock. You got to shorten the game tonight. You've got to win time of possession tonight. And you got to do it by running the football, and I think that starts tonight with all 11 in the run game. This has to be 11 on 11 football in the run game. The Chiefs are good, man, defensively. They've got Chris Jones. You may have heard of him. They've got George Karlaftis, who has become one of my favorite players. He is a true edge setter. Now, they've not been a dynamic pass rush team, but Nick Bolton, that linebacker from Missouri, who's had, a few good years now, he's a problem. They're well coached defensively, they're disciplined defensively, and they've got good players defensively. But I did find something, and I went back and looked at some of the success that some of the teams that were 11 on 11, one team in particular, had running the football. The Chiefs are 22nd in the league in yards per carry against. They're giving up 4.5 yards per carry, 22nd in the league, even with the defense they have, even with the discipline they have. I think Washington has to shorten the game, and by doing that, I think it means they have to be successful running the football 11 on 11. That means Marcus Mariota is a big part of the run game tonight. He is an excellent zone read quarterback. He's an excellent designed runner in the run game. They've got to rush for 150 plus yards in this game. They're averaging 148, per game in rushing yardage. That's come down a little bit here recently. I went back and looked at kind of the game in the moment that was the most comparable. Now, we did not know at that time how bad Baltimore's defense was when they played the Chiefs in week 4. The Chiefs ended up beating the Ravens 37-20, but in that game, Lamar Jackson played. in the game. And in the first half of that game, Baltimore was running the football and they were moving the football. They were up 7-3 late first quarter and about to score again when Lamar threw a pick. They had two critical first half turnovers in a game that ended up going 20-10 at halftime. And that happened when 20-10, they scored 10 points off of the two turnovers. But they ran the football and they moved the football with Lamar involved in the run game. He was 6 for 48 in the game, 8 yards per carry until the second half when essentially they put Cooper Rush into the game when Lamar, remember, was not well, got banged up. And as we know, that was basically it for him. That Kansas City game was the last game he played in. But for, into the third quarter, he had 48 yards rushing. Justice Hill had a big day rushing the football. That's the attack. That's the comp. The Baltimore game is the comp. And, the similarities are striking because we didn't know at the moment, but we know now Baltimore's defense was horrific as well. So was Washington's. If they don't turn the ball over twice in the first half, that game is probably a Baltimore lead or, maybe tied at halftime and they got a shot in the second half. You got to get to that point, right? Put some game pressure on the opponent tonight. But they had all 11, as they always do. Baltimore always does in the run game. 9.8 yards per rush, the Ravens against the Chiefs in that game. And most of that was really in the first, half before Lamar went out. Short number one, pulling off what would be a huge upset requires shortening the game, and to shorten the game, the best chance they have is to run the football. Because remember, when you run the football, the clock runs regardless of the result at the end of the play. Even if it goes out of bounds, they quickly spot it and run the clock unless we're in the final 2 minutes of a half, final 5 minutes of the game. And if you can run it successfully with all 11, and I think that's their best shot to move the football against Kansas City, now you are keeping your defense off the field, which of course is the biggest disadvantage tonight. And it will be the biggest disadvantage going into every single game they'll play the rest of the year. The other team's offense will have an advantage, including a Miami offense in Madrid. They'll have an advantage over Washington's defense. So I do wonder whether or not there's going to be some, there's got to be some sort of recognition from Dan Quinn and the two coordinators. If we go super fast on offense, even if we score, now if they feel it's the only way they can score is by going up tempo and catching teams, you can get to the line of scrimmage and snap it with 8 seconds instead of 16 seconds left on the play clock. I think that's number one tonight. You got to somehow end up on 35-25 time of possession and 150 plus rush yards in the game. Number two, they pull off the upset if they win the mistake battle. And I'm calling it the mistake battle because Washington has really had self-inflicted across-the-board mistakes in their losses this year. Take the Green Bay game out of it. They were dominated by the Packers in every which way, shape, and form. And their last three losses, -5 in the turnover margin, 22 penalties for 208 yards, 10 dropped passes, and a boatload of missed tackles. The mistake battle has to go their way in a significant way tonight. They got to be +2 in the turnover margin. They've got to have no more than 5 penalties. They can't have any dropped passes. They can't miss tackles in open space when you got to make tackles. It's going to be one of those games. Last week, I said the same thing going into it. If you end up with turnovers, penalties, and drop passes, you got no shot because your defense is not going to get off the field enough. So you can't self-inflict damage offensively. And last week, 11 penalties in the game, 11 of them. And that was for, 118 yards? 118 yards, 4 drops and -2 in the turnover margin. The week before against Chicago, -3 turnover margin. In that game, they had 4 drop passes. No drop passes tonight. 5 or fewer penalties. No turnovers. And actually, you got to be +2. Here's the problem with that. Kansas City has the fewest turnovers in the league through 7 games, 2. They don't really have to worry about it because Washington's got the second fewest takeaways with 3. I mean, it really kind of feels like a game in which when we're on the field defensively, the only way we get to +2, which, by the way, the only way you can get to +2 is to have at least 2 takeaways, is if Mahomes throws 1 or 2 up for grabs, which, by the way, he will on occasion. He will. You got to win the mistake battle. I think it's +2 or better, 5 penalties or less, no drops, and you can't miss the number of tackles they've missed this year. Number 3, they can pull it off. It's doable if they limit explosives and then they win in the red zone. You know, believe it or not, it's really weird that I'm going to say this, especially with no Dorrance Armstrong. I actually think they have a chance of looking better tonight, or at least competent tonight, than they did last week against Dallas. Dallas, look, they played a very good defensive team in Denver. Did not play well yesterday. Offensively, they were horrific defensively. And it put the pressure on Dak to score on every drive, and they didn't do it, and he didn't have his best game. Dallas is so dynamic at receiver, at tight end, in the running game. In many ways, I think the combination of CeeDee Lamb and Pickens is better than what the Chiefs can throw at you. Now, so is Mahomes over Dak, okay? But I actually thought last week was just an absolute disaster, you know, at times defensively. And I have a feeling it will be less of a disaster tonight. I'm not encouraged, you know, by oh my God, the Chiefs aren't very good offensively. Of course they are. And Rashee Rice back is a massive difference maker. And the Chiefs are going to have their way with Washington defensively. But I think in some ways it may not look as bad tonight as it did last week. Here's the big problem on defense. First of all, limit explosives and then hope you can get lucky in the red zone. You know, you get a penalty, you get a drop pass, you get, you know, maybe a good defensive play, maybe, and you hold Harrison Butker to a field goal. More on that coming up in a moment. But the biggest problem with the Chiefs, whether they have talent surrounding him or not, is what Quinn used to say or does say about Jaden. It's not the first play within the play. It's the second play that ends up being crushing to a defense. It's the off-schedule creativity, improvisation by Mahomes that is the big problem. That's the big problem. And that's why I don't think they can play any man coverage tonight. They can't get a pass rush without blitzing. And maybe that's what they'll do, but I think they risk giving up major explosives if they do. They don't have anybody that can play man coverage against these receivers. Again, I don't know that they're the route runners that Lamb and Pickens are, but there's a lot of speed on the field, and Rice is certainly an excellent route runner. But I think the bottom line is that you cannot let Mahomes kill you on the second play. And I don't know how you stop that. There's no answer for that. He's one of the greatest all-time off-schedule creators we've ever seen in the game. And it's those plays that are devastating. And they're devastating in the red zone. They're devastating on 3rd and 15. You know, how many times with Mahomes, 3rd and 17, 3rd and 12, and you, oh my God, you think you have him. No, you don't have him. And now he's out on the perimeter. And now, you know, Kelsey's wide open, you know, or Worthy's wide open. And then you got to make tackles. Or he takes off because your back's turned if you're in man coverage. I don't know how they play man coverage tonight. I don't know how they play any man coverage tonight. Unless they're going to send the house. I mean, on every play. And that might not be that might be a better way to go down. The problem, of course, is now you're giving up those explosives again. They can't overcome, more than 2 or 3 explosives. You can't have another 7 plays of 17 yards or more against you like last week. Was it 7? I think it was 12, actually. 12 of 10 or more, 7 of 17 or more last week. Limit explosives, win more often than not in the red zone. And then lastly, here's an advantage for Washington tonight. I knew this team was a good kickoff return team and a good kick coverage team and punt coverage and punting. So Washington leads the league in average yards per kickoff return. So field position could be huge tonight. Luke McCaffrey, a big part of that. Washington, number 1. Now, KC is 6th in the league in kickoff returns. Washington, number 1 in kickoff return yardage on average per return at 31.1. Also, Washington is the 6th best team in the league in kickoff coverage. We kind of feel that in watching them. They're excellent in kickoff coverage. As long as Matt Gay's not kicking it out of bounds or into the end zone, please don't do that. There could be an advantage in field position here tonight. Washington's had some of those advantages. Washington's also 4th in the league in punt coverage, and Tress Way is 3rd in the league in net punting average. These are all hidden yardage numbers that have to add up tonight in their favor. A big Luke McCaffrey 45-yard kickoff return where you're starting in Kansas City territory at their 47, once or twice tonight, huge. If you stop them before the 25-yard line, I don't know that. In some ways, I would almost prefer that their drives be shorter than longer. But there could be an advantage here. Also, by the way, Harrison Butker is not the same kicker this year. He has missed 3 PATs. He's missed 3 field goals on the season. He's had some issues kicking this year, not necessarily the kicker he's been. So there you go. To me, it's you got to shorten the game. You got to win time of possession advantage tonight. You do it by running the football against a team that when they last faced true 11-on-11 rushing football, they gave up a lot to the Ravens. They gave up 166 yards, 9.8 yards per carry, and Baltimore was in that game before Lamar got hurt and before the 2 turnovers. The 2 turnovers in the first half of that game were crucial. So run the ball tonight, 11-on-11, with Mariota being a big part of the run game. Shorten the game. You don't need to snap it with 15 seconds left on the play clock. Play complementary football, which tonight means keeping your defense off the field for as long as you possibly can keep them off the field. So don't snap it so quickly. You got to win. Number 2 is you got to win the mistake battle. Mistakes, not just turnovers. It's penalties, it's drop passes, it's tackles. As I mentioned, in their last 3 losses, -5 turnover margin, 22 penalties for 208 yards, and 10 drop passes, and a boatload of missed tackles. Number 3, you've got to limit the explosives. They've had a major problem doing that. And then you got to win in the red zone. I don't know how they do that. And I don't know how you keep some of those explosives from happening because it's Mahomes off schedule more times than not that creates the explosives. And there's no easy answer to that. And then you got to kind of win that hidden yardage battle. And they've been doing that on special teams with their kickoff return, with their kick coverage, and with their punts. And let's hope they're not punting too much in the game because that's not a good sign either. All right. If you're on hold and you want to weigh in, 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Is tonight doable? And if so, how? Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980, theteam980.com. Don't forget, you can watch us on our Team 980 YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button when you get there.
All right, happy Monday, everybody. We start with a look around the NFC East. The Dallas Cowboys, they fall to the Denver Broncos in a game that got so out of hand that Joe Milton threw a touchdown pass. That meant nothing. The Cowboys lose 44-22. The Eagles, they beat up on the Giants 38-20. And to make matters worse for Brian Dable's squad, they also lost rookie running back Cam Skattebo for the season with a gruesome-looking dislocated ankle injury. Plus, we got some big news out of the college football world. As news broke late last night that LSU is parting ways with head coach Brian Kelly after suffering a lopsided defeat to Texas A&M, where LSU just looked checked out in the second half. Now, the third major program to begin their head coaching search in October, the Caps. They announced this morning they're signing Brett Leeson to a one-year, two-way contract. He'll be placed on waivers and loaned to Hershey for the time being. And the Wizards, they fall to the Charlotte Hornets 139-113. LaMelo Ball stunned with a nearly 40-point triple-double that included 13 rebounds and 13 assists. On the Wizards side, CJ McCollum leads the Wizards in scoring with 24, but the lack of defense late helps spur the Hornets to a 26-point victory. Plus tonight, the Washington Commanders, they get going against the Kansas City Chiefs on Monday Night Football. Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel making their return to the lineup, but the Burgundy and Gold will be without starting quarterback Jaden Daniels and may be without Deron Payne, who missed all of this week of practice due to a toe injury. Burgundy and Gold pregame with Denton and Linnell begins on 106.7 The Fan after Grant and Danny at 6:30. And Maryland basketball gets underway right here on the Team 980 in an exhibition against UMBC. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1. You can catch Denton's office throughout all football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
All right. I gave you my keys to what would be a stunning upset on the road tonight. Washington at 10.5. I'm seeing some 11s out there. It was 13, remember, late last week. For me, this has to be a shortened game. They've got to run 11 on 11, which I'm sure is part of the plan tonight. One of the things I've mentioned, and I do believe this is true, Marcus Mariota is one hell of a dual threat running quarterback, and he actually is a better, read option, zone read quarterback. He's a better decision maker than Jaden. He may not be as explosive when Jaden's right without the brace, etc. But He's a good decision maker. They gotta win time of possession. I think they got to do that by being 11 on 11 in the run game. They've got to win the mistake battle. In their last 3 losses, they've been devastated by turnovers, penalties, drop passes, bad tackling. They've got to limit the explosives and then win in the red zone. That's hard to do against Kansas City because Mahomes is so good off schedule. And then I do think that there could be some hidden yardage benefit in this game. Washington, since Quinn and Larry Izzo, the special teams coordinator, arrived beginning of last year, they're a good kickoff coverage, good punt coverage, and they are a good kickoff return team this year. They lead the league in kickoff returns at 31.1. Maybe a big night for Christian McCaffrey. We'll see. And look, Butker's been off this year. Not like we've got the answer in Matt Gay. Gay's got to make sure that none of these kicks, sail into the end zone or go out of bounds. Let your kick coverage unit go down there and try. Watch, they'll return the opening kickoff for a touchdown. Ian was the first to weigh in today. Go ahead. Is it doable? And if so, how?
No, I don't think so. It's on the road. It's with Mariota and not Jaden Daniels. I just think the mojo of this team with injuries and all the drama of just how poor it's gone. I think it's just going south. I don't think hearing Dan Quinn when they're like, how are you going to fix the defense? His answer is, we will be better.
Yeah.
I would just counter with how and why weren't you better before? It just seems like they don't have a lot of answers. And I think Kansas City is really starting to roll. You're starting to see them hit their kind of peak form. I just don't see it. And I agree with all your keys to victory, but I said this to Doc the other week. Every team has the same keys to victory against KC, but it's so easy to say and almost nearly impossible to do. And I just don't like the vibe of this team right now. And it just seems
they did
really
lose
bad.
to Jacksonville just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah,
and I know that was a road
team.
game, but they lost that game. And what's interesting about that game is they lost the turnover battle. They won the turnover battle in that game and lost that game. They had an S-load of penalties, which was a killer in that game. But, I think we're catching them at a time in which they're the healthiest they've been all year, and that's a problem. But go ahead, finish up.
Right. And I think if this was with Jaden Daniels at home, you're getting Terry back, Debo hopefully a little bit back. I don't think that's it. I would feel a little different, but with Mariota on the road, I just don't see it.
Mariota almost has to have like 85 yards rushing. Bill's got to have another 70, plus. And then they're churning clock and they're moving the football on the ground. That's really the way you got to do it. You got to do it with your offense. The only way to beat the Chiefs is to keep 15 off the field, especially when you have no prayer of stopping 15 with your own defense. So thanks. Let's go to Jalen. Jalen, is it doable? If so, how?
Good morning, Kevin. Yes, I believe that it is doable. Look, if there's one thing about our franchise that we should be accustomed to is upsets. We pulled off quite a few upsets, in our recent history, whether that's going to Pittsburgh and beating an 11-0 Pittsburgh team or an undefeated Eagles team on the road with subpar quarterback play.
Recently, sure.
Dallas. I mean, we've been through this so many times, and like you said, the NFL is just so unpredictable with the parity in it, and I just feel like that with the guys that we have, I mean, yes, we haven't played to the capability that I feel like we've all expected our team to play, but with that said, I mean, I always feel like anytime that we strap on our shoulder pads and our helmets, our guys are getting paid just like the other guys, and I think that after getting embarrassed, by Dallas last week, I really expect the brain trust, the leadership within our locker room to really play a key role in getting, our guys ready to play. And I believe that they're going to come out and put forth a whole lot hell of a better effort than they did the past couple of weeks. I think you're going to see a focused team on both sides of the ball. I think you're going to see a team that understands the circumstances, with the season being on the line, just who they're playing, the caliber opponent. I believe you're going to see everybody's game elevated as a result. But Kevin, you've mentioned pretty much everything I was going to mention in terms of how we're going to get it done. And I think having the number 2 rush offense in the league is going to have to pay dividends today. Most importantly, getting Bill going. I think having Terry and Debo back is going to space the field exactly how we need it to get those rush lanes open. And I want to see Joe Witt Jr. get more aggressive on the defensive side of the ball and blitz, because I do think Kansas City is going to move the ball on us regardless. But in order for us to get that +2 in the takeaway area of the game, we're going to have to get aggressive. I mean, because we're not going to be able to do that conventionally.
Yeah.
We're just rushing 4. We got.
Yeah, Mahomes will put a couple up for grabs. He'll give his receivers a chance. And somehow if you can come down with 1 or 2 of them, that'd be great. But yeah, you reminded me, Jalen, too. It's not, you don't have to go back to 2014 for shocking, upsets. By the way, most of them in standalone games like this one, because that was the Colt McCoy game at Dallas. But, the win over Pittsburgh during the COVID season to end their perfect season as a big underdog in, Pittsburgh, that was an amazing win. Remember, the next year they beat Tampa at home with Brady when they were a big underdog. And then in 2022, the game in which they went to Philadelphia as like a 10-point dog on Monday Night Football and won outright was amazing. It happens in the NFL. Those teams don't have anything to do with this team. I recognize that for sure, but it happens in the NFL. And look, at least they don't have, a quarterback going out there tonight as a backup that hasn't played in big games before and isn't used to this kind of environment. Mariota is. He's not Jaden Daniels, clearly. I think most reasonable people understand that. But he gives you a chance to be more than competent. And he has a power, and that is he's very, very good as a dual threat running quarterback. They need that to be super important tonight. All right, stay on hold. Mike, Mark, Duntle, Chris, Paulie, Hugo. Is it doable tonight? And if so, how does it happen? Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com.
So you said you're going to look at everything on defense. Will we see any changes on defense?
I think what you'll see is improved play. I think that's, obvious that we want to dig in. So when we wanted to look and assess to where we needed to make change and make adjustments, sometimes they're not these big overhauls, John, that make the major improvement. It's these small calibrations and adjustments. And so that is definitely underway. As we get out to practice today, I'm looking forward to seeing the speed. We're trying to eliminate the hesitation, and we will do that.
That was Thursday when he was asked, remember, after the game in Dallas a week ago last night, he was peeved, to say the least, about the defense in particular, and said, everything's on the table. We're going to look into everything. And then we didn't hear anything from him until Thursday. He pushed everything back on Monday. And John Keim's first question is, you said we're going to, you're going to look at everything. So what'd you find when you looked into it? And he said, I think what you're going to see is improved play. Well, all right, then. We're good. We're good. But didn't talk about anything in terms of a big blockbuster headline. It was no big overhaul necessary. It's small calibrations and adjustments. So that's what we're going to do. We'll see if that works. Look, there aren't a lot of answers. It is everything. It's not just Joe Witt Jr. It's not just personnel. They got a lot of issues defensively, and they lost probably their best defensive player this year anyway in Dorrance Armstrong. So it's going to be tough tonight at Kansas City on defense. But the way you pull these games off when you are deficient on one side is somehow you end up winning that mistake battle, and you end up winning the time of possession, and you control the football and keep your defense on the sideline. That is in play. So if you ask me, is it doable? Yes. If so, how? I laid it out for you last hour multiple times. Max, I've not asked you, is it doable tonight? And if so, how?
Any given Sunday or Monday night in this case, but I don't. The defense has got to step up, and they have shown no signs of being able to take that step. Now, if Mahomes or Andy Reid or just, the Chiefs just have an off night, if Steve Spagnuolo is, he wakes up sick and he can't coach the game and somebody else has to fill in on defense, maybe. But I just need this defense to show a little bit of life. I think the offense will be fine, as you said earlier in the show, because Marcus Mariota has shown me that he's more than capable of running that offense, especially when you have Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel back. But this defense it's so banged up that the secondary needs to flip a switch like they did kind of coming down the stretch at the end of last year. Do I have any hope that they will? Not much, but man, this is why we play the games. Any given Sunday, it could happen. But I'm not holding out hope.
I'm actually, I have this is a hunch, not based on anything. I have a hunch that Chris Rodriguez is going to be a factor tonight on offense. Not to the exclusion of Krosky Merritt. I think they'll both be in there, but you need some physical wins,
some punch you in the mouth
at the line of scrimmage with an offensive line that's pretty decent. Pretty decent with Paul and with Cosme back and their ability to perhaps move. It's tough to move Chris Jones, and Nick Bolton is just flat out one of the best. He's so good. 32. You guys know Nick Bolton for them. Chris Jones obviously goes without saying. McDuffie's outstanding. I'm a big Karlaftis fan. Karlaftis to me is Ryan Kerrigan incarnate. They're the same player. There's nothing dynamic. There's nothing game-changing about the way they play, but they are just super stout, super strong, and end up, getting results because of strength more than, style or quickness or, get off, etc. But I Chris Rodriguez, maybe tonight. How about 8 carries for 42 yards? Okay, just over 5 yards a carry. Out of that zone read, it's tough. When your quarterback is a run threat and presented as one, it makes it hard on a defense. Washington's got to do that tonight. Marcus Mariota has to be a big part of what they do in the run game. All right, Mike in Potomac. Mike, is it doable tonight? And if so, how?
Hey, good morning, Kevin. Listen to everything.
Whoa, Mike. Put Mike back on hold. That phone's no good. We'll go to Mark in Largo. Mark, is it doable tonight? And if so, how?
It is very doable, and here's the reason why. Like you said, every year we always have an upset for us. But here's the most important point, Kevin. The last time we beat the Kansas City Chiefs, you were 20 years old, and I was 13 years old. We have not beaten the Kansas City Chiefs in 4 decades. That's pretty astounding. The third reason why I think we're going to do it is because
1 in 10 against the Chiefs. Never have won at Arrowhead. Only stadium we haven't won in.
Okay, that may be true. True. That we never won at Arrowhead.
I'm just adding to your point. It is true.
Right. I agree with you there. Now, I think the most important reason why I think we're going to win this because I think Joe Witt is probably going to have to come out of his bag of blitzing like crazy. He's going to have an exorcism of Greg Williams inside of him where you could just blitz like crazy, and I think that will benefit everything. But I also agree with you, the running game is going to be very, very important too. And 4 is, Kevin, how did you like that Miami-Atlanta game yesterday? I'm just curious. Your great son.
You're so good.
How did he do that?
You're so good. What time's your show tonight? What time are you on? By the way, what was interesting about that? What was interesting about that is you do know that he was nowhere near the top 3 reasons why that happened. They couldn't get off the field.
Oh God, Kevin.
They couldn't get off the field. I paid attention to the game.
No, I swear.
Well, no, did you see? Miami literally drove the ball and scored on every possession. They couldn't get him. They couldn't get Tua and Achane and Ollie Gordon off the field. It was pathetic. He did not play well, though. He did not play well. But their defense was what?
You know what I don't understand about the Falcons? To me,
nobody cares about the Falcons.
They have the triplets as far as talent. Robinson, Drake London, and Pitts.
Well, London didn't play. He was inactive.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna tell you right now.
And Bijan in the first half was 3 carries for 2 yards.
That's unacceptable. Unacceptable.
Yeah.
Look. Let me.
Okay. Enough about the Falcons. What time's your show? Just let everybody know what time you're on tonight. I'll talk to you later. Mark in Largo, everybody. Let's go to Dontel. Dontel and Frederick. Is it doable tonight? And if so, how?
Hey, Kevin, thanks for taking my call, man.
Sure.
You said something earlier I want to say real quick about Austin Reeves. Man, he's that dude. And he's got to get out from behind LeBron because they're holding him back. But I had to say something.
They're holding him back? Yeah, exactly. He had 51 last night. That's insane.
He's playing in the shadow of LeBron and Luka, just like the Josh Giddey was with SGA. I mean, he's just got to get out of it. He's a good ball player, man. And his talents can
By the way, he's better than Giddey.
I probably agree with you on that, but I don't. Giddey can play.
Giddey can play, but Giddey, there's not the killer. Giddey doesn't have that killer instinct. Reeves does.
Right, Reeves does. You are absolutely right about that. But to get to your question about tonight, and we have a legitimate shot, I believe, because after that debacle last week in Dallas, I truly believe in Dan Quinn. I think he's going to have somehow, I don't know how, but I think he's going to have this defense ready to roll. And the key point to it, here's the point. This is how we beat him. In Arrowhead, he dials up a blitz that gets Jacob Martin free, and he knocks Mahomes out the game.
Okay. Well, you know what? Tonight, I'm wishing for Mahomes to get knocked out of the game. Nothing severe, nothing serious. He's back next week, but somehow he doesn't play tonight. That would be interesting. If you're wondering who the backup quarterback in Kansas City is, it's Gardner Minshew. And you know what? He'd probably have a lot of success against our defense as well. Thanks, Dontel. Chris, go ahead. Is tonight doable, and if so, how?
What's up, Kev?
Hey, Chris.
No, tonight's not doable. Here's the problem. have you ever gone into a week where your team is playing your backup quarterback, and the ask of the backup quarterback is not, hey, just do a little bit more, just keep the offense moving somewhat, and let the defense just carry you. It always has to be that way. The defense always has to carry you. That's not the case this week, Kev.
That's true.
Our backup.
He's got to have a great game. He's got to literally have a phenomenal game tonight for them to have any chance.
But the spotlight for all of us watching this team right now, the spotlight is on our defense, and our defense is too slow. Kansas City, Andy Reid, they are going to scheme up. Just envision this. They're going to scheme up Kelsey on Sanders still, and they're going to scheme up all of their fast wide receivers on Wagner and the other linebacker, not Lulu, but the other guy who can't run. Like, they are going to have these guys. How many times?
Well, Jordan McGee actually can run. If you're talking about a linebacker, he can actually run.
Not with the speed they have. Not with the speed they have. I don't think. And you're going to have Lattimore running into our safety 2 or 3 times tonight.
Lattimore and Chin, really at least one collision tonight. Make it 8 for 8.
I'm saying 3 collisions. There's 3 collisions in our secondary tonight. They're going to be running these guys off, and even if can our offense really have sustained drives at this point, because they're going to need either big plays or sustained drives, and we haven't seen any of those this year. Really, truly,
no, we've seen big plays. 8 minutes. We've seen big plays.
Few and far between. And this
I don't know. The 55-yarder at the end of the first half against the Chargers to McCaffrey was a big play. There have been some big plays. I think tonight it's more about churning it out, on the ground, and getting into that 11-on-11 where you've got Kansas City guessing. Does he have it? Doesn't he have it? Who's got it? And a non-weakness on this team, and I'm putting it in those terms because there are a lot of weaknesses on this team. A non-weakness is the offensive line and their run blocking ability. I think they can run the football a little bit tonight. I'm going to be surprised if that's not a major emphasis. I don't want to see trickiness. I don't want to see a lot of horizontal football tonight. If it's part of a combo read option RPO, that's fine. Mariota, faking it, pulling it, and then getting it out into the flat to Terry or to Debo. I'm fine with that, but it's all got to be option-based, not design-based.
One more point to that point, Kev, is that Mahomes and Kansas City, even if, let's say, you have a nice sustained drive, 8 minutes, 9 minutes, something super long, they can score in 2 or 3 plays. Like they can do whatever kind of game they need to do to win the game, and that's why they're so successful. Right. If they need a 12, 15 play drive, they can put that together. If they needed 2 big plays, they do that too. And against our defense, we have no chance against that type of offense, 0 chance. So I'll let you get to other callers, but I'm
thanks, Chris.
Going to be
you've got no
tonight
on whether or not it's doable, so you don't even have to describe how, even though you went into the hows and said they're not really hows tonight. Paulie, is it doable, and if so, how? Is Paulie there?
He was.
All right. By the way, I'm going to just predict what Paulie's going to say. Why are you guys all afraid? It's the NFL. You go in, we of course we can win this game. Y'all shouldn't suit up and even watch the game because it's so doable. I just gave you Paulie since he fell off the
since
the
I
line.
screened that call, I can accurately attest that was pretty much.
Of course, it was going to be that. He's very predictable. Bernie, go ahead. Is it doable, and if so, how?
Hey, Kevin. The short answer is no. And one of my man earlier stole some of my thunder about the history. We always play them at the worst possible time. We've been good sometimes, and they've been better. And when they've been real good, we've been bad. I was at the only game in the rivalry that we won. It was
83
at RFK Stadium, 1983. Yep. Game was over at halftime. That's when Riggins, Theismann, and Monk and everybody showed off. So it's bad mojo. The only saving grace, I think, though, is that the Chiefs might be looking to next week. I think they play Buffalo.
if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken.
Yep, on a short week. Yeah, okay, good point. Could be looking ahead.
Yeah, and Andy Reid is certainly not so. That's not lost on Andy Reid, but human nature being what it is, it could happen. That's the only
Right.
hope.
So I'm just Bernie, because you and I are probably similar in our memories of the team, and I did have to go look this one up, but I looked it up last week when I was looking at the one win that they had against the Chiefs, because organizationally 1-10 against the Chiefs, and the only win was that game at RFK in '83. They actually were down 12-0 at halftime, and they came back and scored 27 unanswered in the second half to win the game 27-12. I didn't remember the particulars of the game either, but they were down 27, down 12-0 at halftime. This is the '83 Skins. Those '83 Skins, as you remember, were one high-powered offensive football team. This was week 3. They were down 12-0 at half. Nick Lowry kicked 4 field goals. St. Albans High School. Nick Lowry.
I think I was probably thinking about most of that season. We were killing people at the halftime.
Sure, exactly.
I probably
100%.
merged that in with the whole season. But anyway, maybe they're looking past us, and maybe we'll catch them off guard.
We'll see. Thanks, Bernie, as always. Let's go to Bay in D.C. Bay, go ahead. Is it doable tonight? And if so, how?
Hey, what's up, Kev? Thanks for taking my call, man.
Sure.
Look, this game is more than doable. All they have to do is send that fire. Patrick Mahomes love to throw slants. Don't go for the pump fake. Light him up and win the turnover battle. That's how we win this game. Win the turnover battle and put him under duress. No, nothing else matters. Put that dude under duress and make him think before he even think about crossing that line again. That's what I say, 34-24.
That is the badass way of thinking about it. And I would love it if somehow they could put him, in that kind of duress with a pass rush that is going to be hard to generate without sending like 8 players. But yeah, it could happen. Of course, he makes pass rushes and blitzes look silly. And I don't know what they do behind it, because they can't cover in zone, and then they make up for it by being terrible in man-to-man. Chris in Maryland, is it doable tonight? And if so, how? Are you there, Chris?
Yeah, I'm here. How you doing, sir?
Good. Go ahead, Chris. You're on.
Oh, I think it's doable tonight. Check this out. Kansas City going to be missing 2 out of 5 starters on the offensive line.
Offensive line, yeah. Simmons has been out for a while.
Yeah, and Smith's going to be out too, right? And I think it's doable today. Listen, hey, and a lot of people to say it's not doable. Look, you start the game off 0-0, right? So I think you guys are going to establish a run game a little bit tonight, and being able, I think Marcus Mariota is going to have probably 40 to 50 rushing yards tonight. I think the RPO game is going to be alive tonight, and just having Terry McLaurin, it doesn't even matter if he's healthy or not. Having Terry and Debo out there, you're gonna draw some of the best corners on that side. And McDuffie's going to be over there. But and look, the inside game got to open up. This is a game for Zach Ertz to have a big game tonight in the middle of the field right here. It's doable. Coaches, you're going against Andy Reid tonight. You're going to bring your best game tonight. So I think it's doable.
The NFL, it's always doable. So I'm with you on that. I do think that the idea that you're going to win the turnover battle has to be more than an idea. It's got to be a reality. They got to be +2 minimum in the turnover area. And Kansas City's got the fewest takeaways through 7 games. They've only fewest giveaways. They only have 2 turnovers on the season. And Washington, of course, has the second fewest takeaways next to the Jets. So things change. I'm not suggesting that should have a major bearing on tonight. Turnovers tend to be somewhat random at times, no doubt. They need it to turn in their direction tonight in a major way. All right, when we come back, we'll go around the NFL. It was not the best NFL day yesterday, that is for sure. A lot of boring games and blowouts. But there is one team that's starting to separate themselves. And you can laugh all you want, but the Indianapolis Colts and their margin of victory difference is starting to become a legitimate, real thing. Don't forget, all of our NFL conversation on this show is brought to you by Paramount Plus. You can't count on much, but you can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus. Watch your local NFL game live every Sunday all season long. Visit ParamountPlus.com/NFL to get started today.
2nd and 10. They go with Harvey on the toss, and there goes Harvey. Harvey's got a first down. Harvey's looking for the end zone. Harvey takes it home.
RJ Harvey didn't even get touched on that run. Dallas and Washington, right? I don't know. Pittsburgh's pretty bad. Cincinnati's pretty bad. There's some bad defensive football teams this year. Really bad. The Cowboys might be the worst of all of them. Denver rolled up 426 yards and 44 points in the game. Beat Dallas 44-24 after last week's impressive win by the Cowboys over Washington. There was a decision made by Brian Schottenheimer. Third quarter, they're down 30-17 in a game in which you can't really get a stop. More likely than not, you're not going to get a stop. You probably won't get the ball back with the score being the same if you decide to punt it. And on 4th and 5, right around midfield, I think it was their own 45-yard line, they punted. When they did that, even I think Romo just said, nah, you got to go for it here. You got to go down and score a touchdown to make it 30-24 if you're going to have any chance. They punted it. 12 plays, 84 yards later, it was 37-17, game over. Denver's very impressive, man. We've talked about their pass rush. Nick Bonito is a star. They lost Pat Surtain in this game early to an injury. That would be a devastating injury if it's long term. But they ran the ball so many times where nobody's touched for 6-7 yards. Dobbins went for 111. How about the season J.K. Dobbins is having? He's got 634 yards on the season, averaging 5.3 yards per carry. He had essentially for a song at the end of the summer, and they're working into it the UCF rookie RJ Harvey. Bo Nix can throw the football, and the offense is perfect for him. 4 touchdown passes for Nix, 44-24 Denver. The Cowboys the next 2 weeks, if you're a Cowboy fan looking for a bit of a silver lining, Cardinals, Raiders to get to 5-4-1 through 10. But they have the Eagles, Chiefs, Lions, the 3 games after that. I think, and this is where, I've said that the larger concern for me about Washington isn't the offense, and I felt that way after the Chicago game. I still feel that way after the Dallas game. Of course, it will matter who's quarterbacking the team. But when you are just bad on defense, in this league, you have a chance. When you are truly horrific on defense, you don't really have a chance. You just can't win enough games 38-35 to get to 10 or whatever you need to get to get into the postseason. Denver's rolling. They are 6-2. They were dead to right, man. You think about, they struggled offensively against the Giants through 3 quarters before their eruption, and they had their way with Dallas and their defense. Let's go to the link for the Eagles and the Giants.
Here's Hurts. Blitz coming. Hurts sees it. Loading up. Going for a deep ball. It is. Oh! Jahan Dotson. Oh, touchdown, Eagles.
Yeah, it was Jahan Dotson. It wasn't the cleanest of catches by Jahan Dotson, but it was a really good, kind of ball, bounced around, hit his hands, came out of his hands. Then he pulled it in for a touchdown. It was his only catch of the day. In case you are concerned that Jahan Dotson's developing into a star. I think what's scary about the Eagles is we know the talent that they have. And they went through this stretch where they did not look good in losses to Denver, to the Giants. Even before that, they weren't very dynamic offensively. But they've gotten it together. In the last 2 games, you've got Jalen Hurts, who is 34 for 43. For 505 yards passing, 7 touchdowns, no interceptions in his last 2 games. And then yesterday, the one thing they haven't been able to do run the football, you get Mr. Barkley going 65 on the second play from scrimmage, 14 for 150. Add to that Tank Bigsby. They traded for him a few weeks ago. He comes into the game, and he gets over 100 on 9 carries against that Giant defense. They rushed for 276 yards in the game, and they had no A.J. Brown in the game. He sat. They're a scary team talent-wise. They go into their bye week 6-2. Then they come out against the Packers afterwards. Look, the devastating news for the Giants was the Cam Scatterbo fractured broken ankle, which was hideous if you watched it. That thing was pointed and bent in a direction that was completely unnatural. That's the loss of a big-time rookie here in this season. But I'm not going to do the 15 minutes on the tush push here. But the bottom line is, and I'm sure you've all seen it, a tush push, Jalen Hurts reaching out, having the ball stripped by Kayvon Thibodeau, fumble, he comes up with it, and they called it forward progress stopped. You just can't have this. I think this was gone before this play, but this play cinches it, man. So I guess, if the forward progress hasn't gotten the first down yet, then forward progress continues until they get a first down. But if they already have the first down, then forward progress stops, even though he's being pushed and he's reaching the ball out. No, that can't be the way it works. It's an impossible play to officiate, apparently, and it's a terrible play to watch. It is gone next year. No chance. I'd bet my firstborn that the tush push is eliminated. They only needed 2 votes. They got more than 2 to cinch it in the offseason. Enjoy it, Philly. This thing is over. That was a terrible, terrible call. Meantime, the Eagles don't even need it. They're good. They're getting better. Their 38-20 win gets them to 6-2. They play the Packers, Lions, and Cowboys coming out of the bye week in order, with 2 of those at Lambeau and at Dallas being on the road. Let's go to Pittsburgh for Sunday Night Football.
Pressure coming. He picked it up. Inside. Kraft's got it. At the 10. Kraft running away to the end zone. He has 2 touchdowns.
Tucker Kraft, we saw it in week 2. He's developing into one of the better tight ends in the NFL. 7 catches, 143 yards, 2 touchdowns. What's scary about that is just how bad the Pittsburgh defense is. This is the thing about defense, and we talked about this in the offseason. It's the variance year to year is great. It's so much greater than it is with offensive football. You just don't know. Like TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, Jalen Ramsey, the other players they have on that defense, Darius Slay they traded for, TJ Watt, obviously. I mean, Patrick Queen. It's like they got all the names, but it seems like they're aging a little bit. And they are terrible on defense. Terrible. And it's a shame for them because they've got quarterback play for the first time in several years. It wasn't just that Jordan Love completed a franchise record 20 passes in a row. It's that the receivers were so far open and then they couldn't tackle them once they had the ball. Jordan Love was 29-37 for 363 touchdowns. And it was just embarrassing how open these guys were and how bad the tackling was on the back end. Now, with that said, there was a play in this game. If you were watching this game last night, Pittsburgh actually played exceptionally well in the first half. They scored on 4 of 5 possessions. Now, a lot of them were long field goals, but they started off the second half with the ball up 16-7. And on a 3rd and 8, Aaron Rodgers gets Green Bay to jump off sides. It's clear. It's almost unabated to the quarterback. And so he takes that free play to take a shot down the field. and it's incomplete, and then there's no flag anywhere. Then the referees huddle because clearly somebody, instant review said that was an offsides, gentlemen. You're going to need to drop the flag no matter how late it is to drop the flag. They didn't drop the flag. The game literally flipped because Pittsburgh had been moving all night long. 3rd and 3 was in their, now they had some 4th down conversions. 3rd down wasn't great number on the night, but if they had taken that opening second half drive down the field and scored, even if it's a field goal to make it 19-7, it's going to be a ball game. I'm not saying they win it, but the game completely flipped. Green Bay then went touchdown, 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 field goal, end of game 35-25. Pittsburgh had some stupid penalties, 15-yard big penalties. DK Metcalf got called for an unnecessary roughness post-play. A lot of post-play, 3 of them, 15-yard penalties. Green Bay with Jordan Love against Aaron Rodgers, 35-25. The Packers right now in the NFC at 5-1-1. If the season ended today, they would be the 1 seed. Long way to go, but we know how good they are. I mean, Micah Parsons, dominant, suffocating defensively, even though Pittsburgh moved the football and scored points and had a 9-point lead at halftime. That was an interesting game last night. Jordan Love, when Jordan Love is at his best, borderline elite. The problem is he's not always at his best. Last night it was easy against another bad defensive team. How about maybe, other than Dallas and Washington, the worst defensive team, Cincinnati? The Jets went into that game with all the turmoil. Woody Johnson, riding the bus over his quarterback, Justin Fields, and the Jets came out and won their first game of the year.
A closer look at him, and that just adds to the intrigue here down the stretch. Hall, boy, thought about it, now tosses to the end zone, he's got Taylor for the Jets touchdown.
That was crazy. That was a halfback option for the go-ahead to give them a 39-38 lead. They were down 38-24 midway through the 4th quarter and had a 4th and 1 that they converted. Next play was a Breece Hall touchdown run in which he was literally untouched. They went for 2, the going for 2 down 8 on that first touchdown when you're down 14. They converted it, although it was dicey. It was called short of the goal line, and then it was overturned on replay. I thought that was a bit iffy. Look, I had the Jets. I gave the Jets out again, fully expecting to lose, and they end up winning the game outright. Unbelievable that, you can put up 400 yards of offense and 38 points and lose to the Jets. How bad are the Bengals that they gave up 502 yards of offense to a team that couldn't gain a first down almost? And I'm so happy for Justin Fields. He looked like a quarterback that was completely done and could not do it. He threw for 244, no turnovers. He also rushed for 31 yards in a 254-yard rushing day for the Jets. And after last week at 0-7, with the owner basically driving a bus over him publicly, Woody Johnson, what a dope he is. And by the way, Justin Fields handling it with great class last week. This is what he said after the game.
Yesterday, I'm praying like crazy, just for a win, and this I'm gonna get pretty vulnerable right here, but this week I kind of I found myself in my closet crying, on the ground, laying down, not because of the hardships, not because of the troubles. I felt like I was built to handle that, and I was put in place to handle this situation. But in that moment when I was talking to my best friend, how hard it was, and just not wavering faith-wise, I just had gotten a text from my sister and my stepmom, and it was just an encouraging text on just keep going and keep spreading the faith, and they just sent me a link on social media. And I tell you guys all the time that I'm not on social media, so I didn't see it. So that was just a it was just a sign from God for me to keep going, and that I'm in the right place. Yesterday, I was just praying over and over and over again, like just one win, and But all that to say is that God is real, God is good, and everything that we go through in this life is for a purpose. So
I don't know how you can, not feel good for him. He had played legitimately two of the worst quarterback games consecutively in back-to-back weeks. The Denver game in London, the loss last week in Carolina. In those two games, he threw for a combined 91 yards and got sacked 12 times. He got benched last week, and if Tyrod Taylor hadn't been hurt, he would not have played in yesterday's game. Tyrod Taylor would have been the starter yesterday had Tyrod Taylor been healthy. That was more likely than not the plan. And Justin Fields got an opportunity. And I'll tell you what, before the day started, when I heard that he was starting and I had given the Jets out as a smell test pick plus the 7, I was like, well, this isn't going to work. But the line didn't change. It stayed there. So I kept the play, and they were getting their ass kicked. I mean, Flacco lit it up again. I mean, he was awesome in the game again. The last drive, I don't know why they didn't throw to Higgins or Chase. Chase, again, he's now been targeted in 2 games 42 times. Think about that. 42 targets for a wide receiver in 2 games and 28 catches. He had another 12 yesterday. But yeah, Cincinnati had a chance to be right there in the AFC North with a win. Happy for a young man who really went through it last week with his dopey owner, one of the worst, maybe the worst, along with the Carolina owner since Snyder sold the team. Good for him to end up having that kind of a win. It's not going to spur the Jets to some sort of magical season. Cincinnati's defense is truly terrible. We saw last week, we've seen Cincinnati all year just be horrible on defense. No improvement from last year. I guess there's not much variance year to year with their defense. It was bad last year. It's bad again this year. By the way, in the NFC North, Baltimore is once again the favorite, even though they are 2-5 football team. We got more around the NFL, including the team with the best record in the NFL once again pounding a lesser team into submission, but still doing what they're supposed to do. I think there's merit in that. We'll discuss it when we come back. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com.
All right, happy Monday, everybody. Here's what's happening. We take a Monday look around the NFC East after the games yesterday. Dallas falls to the Denver Broncos in a game that got so out of hand. Joe Milton threw a touchdown pass that meant nothing. Cowboys lose 44-24. The Eagles, they beat up on the Giants 38-20. And to make matters worse for Brian Dable's squad, they also lost rookie running back Cam Scatterbo for the season with a gruesome-looking dislocated ankle. Big news out of the college football world, as the news broke late last night that LSU is parting ways with head coach Brian Kelly after suffering a lopsided defeat to Texas A&M, where LSU looked checked out in the second half. Now the third major program to begin their head coaching search in October. The Caps, they announced this morning they're signing Brett Leason to a 1-year, 2-way deal. He will be placed on waivers and loaned to Hershey for the time being. The Wizards, they fall to the Hornets 139-113. LaMelo Ball stunned with a nearly 40-point triple-double that included 13 rebounds and 13 assists. On the Wizards side, CJ McCollum leads the Wizards in scoring with 24, but the lack of defense late helped spur the Hornets to a 26-point victory. Plus, tonight, the Washington Commanders, they get going against the Kansas City Chiefs on Monday Night Football. Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuel making their return to the lineup, but the Burgundy and Gold will be without starting quarterback Jaden Daniels and may be without Deron Payne, who missed this week of practice with a toe injury. Burgundy and Gold pregame live coverage with Denton and Linnell begins on 106.7 The Fan after Grant and Danny at 6:30. And on right here on the Team 980, Maryland basketball underway in an exhibition against UMBC. That will also get underway at 6:30. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1, and you can catch Denton's office throughout all football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
Got to be other places. Jim Bob putting it all together for his team. And Shane Steichen appreciates it.
There he goes again. Taylor. Yes. History.
12 touchdowns in 8 games for Jonathan Taylor as the Colts rolled 38-14 over the Titans. 12 carries, 153 yards for him. He now has 12 TDs through 8 games, 850 yards rushing to lead the league. He also has over 200 yards in pass receptions and 2 touchdowns. He's certainly making a case right now for what could be a muddled MVP race with a lot of different possibilities. But Jonathan Taylor, unbelievable as the Colts rolled again. They are 7-1. Their point differential through 8 games is 116 points. That comes out to an average margin of 14.5 points per game. You can point to the schedule and say they lost to the Rams. It's actually a game they really shouldn't have lost. They got a bit lucky in week 2 against the Broncos. They missed a game-winning field goal, but the Broncos jumped off sides, giving them another opportunity, and they made that kick. They play, at Pittsburgh. They play at Kansas City. They still have the Texans twice, the Jags twice, the Seahawks, the 49ers. They're going to get tested. I just think sometimes when you get to this point in the season, you can start to identify teams that are real versus teams that really aren't. And I think the Colts have to be real. They score every single week. This is a team that is the highest scoring team in the NFL. The Indianapolis Colts with Daniel Jones, they have an excellent roster. We've talked about that the last couple of years, whether it was Anthony Richardson quarterbacking or even last year, briefly when Joe Flacco was quarterbacking. But they're averaging 33.8 points per game, and they are stopping people. They're well coached. Look, are they better than Buffalo? Can they beat Buffalo? Can they beat Kansas City? The 2 stalwarts in the AFC in the postseason. We don't know until we get there, but they're certainly heading towards a playoff season. Now, I'm going to tell you in that division with the game that we have next that there's still a team that I think people are sleeping on. But don't sleep on what the Indianapolis Colts have done. When you see that kind of point differential in 7 wins in 8 games, it's legit. Let's go to Houston for the Texans and the 49ers.
4-man pressure. Jones down the sideline for the end zone. Leaping interception by Kamari Lassiter.
Houston dominated this game. They beat the snot out of San Francisco. The final score 26-15. Even Kyle Shanahan said we got physically whipped in this game. Houston's defense is legit. And I've said this going back to last year when people said he was having a major sophomore season regression. I like CJ Stroud. I think he can throw it. I think he makes plays with his legs. That guy's been behind a woeful offensive line for 2 straight years, and yesterday did not have his top 2 receivers, certainly his top receiver in Nico Collins. And against San Francisco's defense, which completely shut down Atlanta, who's got major problems offensively with their coordinator, I think more than anything else, Stroud was 30 of 39 for 318 yards, 2 touchdowns, and also rushed for 30 yards in the game. They rolled up against the 49ers 475 yards of offense. I think Houston is still a dangerous team, and I know that at 3-4 behind 7-1 Indianapolis, there's a long way to go, but they still play the Colts twice this year. They get another game with the Jags at home. I still think Houston can win that division. And man, that division, the AFC South, pretty damn good. Like the AFC North stinks. The AFC South, good. Don't count Houston out quite yet. Let's go to Baltimore for the Ravens looking to get back into the AFC North race if they can beat Chicago.
Second down and long, fake the handoff from his own end zone. Williams has time. Downfield, intercepted. Wiggins steps in front. And the Ravens come up with the big play defensively.
Yeah, big play defensively. That was in a 16-13 game in the fourth quarter, deep in their own territory, and he throws an interception. That leads to a Ravens touchdown and a 10-point lead. And that was not game over, but it was a massive turning point. Caleb Williams, only pick of the day, didn't take a lot of sacks in the game. I didn't watch a lot of this game. Tyler Huntley got the start for Lamar. Looks like the Ravens could get fined big time, but they ran the football. Derrick Henry, 71 yards. Tyler Huntley with the quarterback involved, 53 yards rushing. That guy Keaton Mitchell, who was hurt last year, he had his best game of the year, and the Ravens got a crucial win. They play Thursday night against Miami. If they can get that one, their next three are on the road, but against the Dolphins, Vikings, and Browns. Remember, they still have the Steelers twice and the Bengals twice in their division. And I think I mentioned this earlier. They're now the favorite to win the division, barely at -105, but they are the favorite. Let's go to Foxborough for Drake May's incredible game, another one for him.
He's throwing for the end zone, and back there the catch is made. Kayshon Boutte has 6.
So I gave out Cleveland against New England. So I was watching, a significant portion of this game. So there are a couple of things at work. Number one, Cleveland's a mess, obviously, on offense. They're not a mess on defense, though. Myles Garrett had 5 sacks in the game. 5. He's got 10 on the year. I mean, I was having this conversation with Scott Van Pelt last night. We were talking about this. Myles Garrett would be, right? We both agreed on this. If there was a draft of all NFL players, he'd be the first non-quarterback taken, right, Max?
Easily.
And yet the Patriots rolled. Look, they ended up, picking off Dylan Gabriel twice. They were down. They were up 9-7 in the first half. Drake May, the one thing I'll say, he takes too many sacks and he takes a pounding sometimes on these sacks. But I got to tell you, man, he is tough, smart, sees it, throws it accurately. He throws a great deep ball, and he's great off schedule. He had 50 yards rushing in the game to go along with his 282 passing. Yes, he was sacked 6 times in the game, and he's the most sacked quarterback in the NFL at this point in the season. I'm pretty sure that's true. He was going into the game. Cam Ward is. He's the second most sacked quarterback in the game. He's good, though. He's really good. Look, it's a long way to go. They have a great supporting cast. They have an excellent defense. They're well coached. They really haven't played, other than Buffalo, a good team that they've beaten. But here's the thing. It's not like they're going to get tested a bunch this year. They play the Falcons this week. They then play at Tampa. That'll be a test against. That's the one I want to watch. Todd Bowles and what he can do against the second-year quarterback. There's no doubt, man. He is super talented. They're going to be a playoff team just based on their schedule alone. They've got the Jets twice. They've got the Giants. They've got the Dolphins. They've got the Falcons. They've got the Ravens. Who knows what they'll look like at that point. New England and Vrabel have turned this thing around, but you don't turn it around like this without the quarterback. They are having the season that Washington had last year against the last place schedule and with a much better coaching staff and coordinator because Josh McDaniel gets some of the credit. The debates about the 24 draft at this point are just absurd. Like, call me when Drake Mays won 14 games in 2 road playoff games and had the greatest season in the history of a quarterback for a rookie. Now, he's having the kind of season that is going to keep his name in contention for like the MVP. Jaden was in contention for the MVP at this point last season. The one thing about May, he takes a lot of sacks, takes a ton of sacks, and he takes some sacks where he gets his eggs scrambled a bunch, man. He takes some hits on that head, but man, can he play. He is exciting. He is legit. I like Drake May coming out of the draft. Love Jaden more. Love Penix Jr. more. But I like Drake May, and he's going to be another one in this draft from 2024 that we look back on it as maybe the best quarterback draft in NFL history. But they are taking advantage, no doubt, right now of an absolute putrid schedule. There's no doubt that that's been part of the benefit. All right. Elsewhere, Buffalo hammered Carolina. Tampa hammered New Orleans. Miami crushed Atlanta. Kirk Cousins' first start after Penix was ruled out did not go well. He was the least of their issues. They couldn't run the football, and they couldn't get off the field defensively against Miami, but he didn't play well either. And the Falcons really look like Raheem Morris might be the next one to get fired because they got too much talent to be a 3-4 football team. Now, they did not have their number one receiver yesterday. So that hurt them for sure to not have Drake London out there. But that team is Jekyll and Hyde, and they get the Patriots and Drake May next. All right, Ben Standig next to join us from Kansas City. All right, about 8 hours and 15 minutes away from kickoff. Ben Standig joins us from Kansas City, where he will be attending tonight's game, working at tonight's game. You can read his Substack column after the game. You can read his preview before the game by going to his X account, at Ben Standig. Also has a podcast called Last Man Standing. So I'll ask you the question that I ask callers for the first hour of the show. Is tonight doable, and if so, how?
Well, I mean, certainly they've got, they're one of two teams that can come away with a win. So, from that perspective, it's doable. Obviously weird things happen in the NFL. Yesterday was a good example of that with some of the results, but, obviously the odds are really against them. I think ultimately it is, the pretty basic stuff. You cannot, the last 2 weeks they've been -5 in the turnover battle, haven't created one. That obviously cannot work in most games, let alone against a team like Kansas City with the firepower they have offensively. And just in general, I think, the offense with Mariota in there, we know that, the ceiling is not the same as Jaden Daniels, but they can still be effective when it comes to, controlling the clock, moving the chains, getting the running game going again, keep the Chiefs off the field, keep their defense off the field. If they can do these things, then that shrinks the the Chiefs advantages and gives them a better opportunity. But there's basically no margin of error when you don't have Daniels. Your defensive line, you really are thin, incredibly thin at defensive end. At the moment, we don't even know if Deron Payne's going to play, but put that aside for now. Those are the basic things. I mean, you can't, they can't have the missed tackles, all the fundamental stuff. Beyond that, we can get into what it looks like with Terry McLaurin and being out there, or how do they cover, Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy. But really, it's the fundamental stuff. If they don't do that, I don't think they're going to have much of a chance.
What's the turnover margin for them to win tonight? Plus what?
I mean, plus anything would be good, but plus 2 feels like at least you're a couple opportunities there. Obviously there's a combination of, if you get the turnover, that means you're taking Mahomes off the field, which is great. But then what do you do with that? If you're just punting it back, it's not nothing, but it's not everything either. So they got to hopefully can take advantage of whatever mistakes they get. I mean, Mahomes, when you have a guy, obviously he's one of the greatest quarterbacks, and the guy's been defining the last several years of the NFL. But he's also willing to make aggressive throws that can lead to turnovers and can make some mistakes. So right. Again, it's not like you can't bank on that, but at least there should be opportunities there. And then the question is this team that's been really, really poor at creating turnovers can actually get some?
In your Substack column, you referenced something that I actually saw and I haven't mentioned, but I want you to mention it. I referenced the DVOA metric, the Aaron Schatz DVOA metric, defense adjusted value over average. It's much more of a comprehensive view of a team and of a team's 3 units: offense, defense, special teams, and a lot of the traditional numbers. And he wrote something recently about Washington, who currently, at least going into this last weekend of football, was the number 7 ranked team in the NFL per his DVOA ranking. What did he say?
Basically, he said that Washington was the most confounding team to him in his numbers, which as he said, it's the DVOA is, and it's take all the data and sort of simplify it to give you a sense of where teams are at. I don't think anybody would think that Washington is the 7th best team in the league, or even kind of in that neighborhood. But that's the thing, and we've talked about this all year: the game against the Giants, the game against the Raiders, and to some degree the game against the Chargers, the wins, they were it was pretty lopsided affairs, and that without the metrics aren't aware of necessarily certain aspects of these games that you and I are more aware of, i.e. like the Raiders and Giants had 4 injured offensive line, same with the Chargers, or maybe the data's in there somewhere, but you know what I mean? Like that's like those things are obvious to us watching it. So yeah, I just think he's just confused by what that numbers show. And again, it is confusing. And if you're on the outside, you might be like, maybe Washington's just getting some bad luck. Okay, maybe there's some of that, but we've seen the other games, and the other games have been pretty lopsided against them. The final scores haven't always been an indication of that, right? They lost to Green Bay by 9. It certainly felt way worse than that, as an example. So, he just said the numbers in this case probably don't tell the full story.
Yeah, they did drop after yesterday's game to 11th now in the NFL in overall DVOA. All right. Terry and Debo are back, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it looked like that way from the beginning, and they've made it through, though, without any issue. Dan Quinn said on Saturday that they will be out there. Obviously, just even having Debo back would be huge based on what we saw with him. But to get them both back, whatever rust Terry may or may not have, at a minimum, the defenses have to respect his presence, which means, fewer jammed boxes for the quarterback in the run game. So all in all, his presence alone makes a big difference, let alone if he's actually going to be, the productive guy we've seen over the years.
And Deron Payne is in jeopardy of not playing?
That's what I was told the other day. I mean, in jeopardy versus questionable may sound different in tone. So they've officially listed him as questionable. But, yes, the toe issue is enough of whatever's going on there. is enough of a concern that at least it is somewhat in jeopardy about not playing. But, it's been a couple days. He's had some time to rest, get more treatment, so on and so on. So we'll see if, where we're at. I've not heard anything since I've been in Kansas City on this. We'll see. They've got obviously time today to do anything. They're going to elevate Sheldon Day off of the practice squad regardless because they did last week, and they're just short on bodies. The only other defensive lineman that they have, like sort of for real, is Ricky Barber, a UDFA. He's another defensive tackle. He comes up, then I think we know something's up with Payne, but we may find out in advance of that.
So when Quinn said the other day, and we are joined, of course, by our Commanders insider, Ben Standing, live from Kansas City. When Quinn said the other day, when John asked him about, okay, it's Thursday now, and you've had several days to kind of dig into what you said you were going to dig into, which is everything's on the table. We're going to look at everything as it relates to the defense. And the first thing he said was, I think what you'll see is improved play. Go ahead and describe what you think he believes is going to happen for us to see improved play.
Well, I think the conclusion that they've come with is that some guys may be overthinking to whatever is being presented to them, the play call, the adjustments that needed to be made on any given play, and that's causing them to react, which is causing them to move slower and leading to some of the problems. From my perspective, and I think he would never say this, of course, but I imagine on some level that he would feel the same, and that is the odds of them winning tonight are pretty thin. We get that, but pretty small. But they can look better. Like if Kansas City does what Kansas City does, hey, okay, it is what it is what it is. They just can't make it easier. They can't miss so many tackles. They need to be fundamentally sound in their responsibilities. If they can do those things, even if Mahomes, Kelsey, and Rice and Worthy and Pacheco and whatever else they have going on, it's too much to handle. So be it. But they have to show improvement. Like that's the thing. Like in their losses this year, it just hasn't felt like they've been particularly close most of the time. It's not everybody can win. The two best teams in the league, whoever you deem them to be, play head to head. The game doesn't end in a tie, then one of them lost. But that's not what we're looking at here. So I think from his perspective, he's just believing that they're going to just be fundamentally better. What that at wins loss, we'll see. But if they're not fundamentally better, then it's really going to be hard to have too much optimism in these next two games against Seattle and Detroit. And from my perspective, these four games, KC and the two home games, and then Madrid, they got to go at least 2-2 to keep just to stay alive. If they don't, then we can start probably talking about 2026. So to me, again, result aside, they just have to look better. Let Kansas City beat them, not give them all the kinds of help that we've seen over the last few weeks.
Yeah, I kind of view it as they really have to be kind of 6-6 heading into December. 5-7 would be difficult because I think they'd have to run the table to have any chance. But if they can get to 6-6 heading into December, which means winning 3 of the next 5, right? Chiefs, Seahawks, Lions, Dolphins, Broncos, with basically every single one of those games at home with the exception of the Madrid game. Then you go into December 6-6 and you have a season that you're playing for. 5-7 in this NFC, and by the way, where the division might be at that point may be too much to ask. You wrote in your Substack column just about the trade deadline conundrum for Washington. The trade deadline, for those of you who don't know, is a week from tomorrow. So Washington will have 2 games in the books, tonight and then Sunday night against Seattle. Seattle coming off a bye week heading into that game. And if you're wondering, I did see an early line. Last week, I guessed, it could potentially be like in the Pick'em area. Seattle's an early, looking ahead to Sunday night, not knowing anything about what happens tonight. They are an early 2.5 point favorite. Washington a home dog against Seattle. But anyway, back to the trade deadline, which would then come 2 days later. What's the conundrum?
Well, I mean, for one, I think the conundrum is like, where is this team? Are they the team that by some numbers like DVOA suggests they're better than the eye test maybe? Or do you look at it as, boy, they're already, where the record is, and they've got 3-4, and the 3 games coming up are really daunting. If they lose these games, then maybe it's more realistic to think, hey, we need to start building for the future to an extent, because the whole goal of this is not just any individual season, it's to have a sustained success. And as we've discussed, this is a team that, the regime inherited a lousy roster. They've made some changes, of course, over the last 2 years, but there's still a long way to go. They've got the oldest roster in the league, so maybe it makes sense. And they only have 6 draft picks next year. Only 2 of those 6 are in the first 4 rounds. So how do you improve going forward when you have limited options? And they have the 3rd fewest players under contract for next year, according to Over the Cap. So they're going to have a lot of holes to fill. Yeah. One way to start addressing that is to acquire more picks. But how do you do that and sort of maintain, you're trying to contend simultaneously? If you think, hey, what's this year's version of the Marshawn Lattimore trade, hopefully a better result, but, something that they could do to improve defensive end. Well, what are you trading to get that? You don't, like I just said, they don't have the picks, the assets to really do that. And why would you maybe burn some of those assets for a team that you're kind of not sure is really going to be able to contend no matter what you do? So that's why they're in this sort of weird spot. And, the worst thing to be in sports is always being somewhere stuck in the middle. I'm not necessarily saying that, but that's kind of like, at least for the moment, it kind of feels like where they're at.
Okay. I mean, I'm with you, by the way, but give me some of the names that could bring back something that would make sense.
Oh, sure. I mean, we've talked about Brandon Coleman. I don't have any real sense that they are looking to move him, but like if a guy who was a 3rd round pick a year ago, who we've seen can play in this league, is now not only benched but inactive, and you're bringing back next year basically 4 or 5 starters, and Chris Paul, I would imagine, is easily re-signed if they want. So it's not even like they desperately need him. So if they think they could get something for him, I think that's a guy to keep an eye on. If this thing goes again, if they were to lose these next 2 games, I mean, you'd have to wonder about Deebo Samuel. He's a free agent at the end of the year. He's obviously been very productive to this point. You would think that some team out there might look at him as a guy that could give you some real instant offense to your attack. But again, what does that do? What would that do for Washington? I think on some level, even if they were to say, fine, we're going to go into sell mode, you also don't want to strip it down on offense so much that you're hurting the quarterback, because, his development is the most important thing. As much as we all act like, to some degree, like he's already, a fully formed quarterback, there's still, progress. There's still development that needs to occur. So you don't want to take away all of his pieces. But, Deron Payne's contract is such that and I'm not smart enough on the cap to fully grasp everything, but like his cap number basically for this year is such that it would like really hamper them for this year. And I don't know if the other team is gonna, the other team would have to deal with the fact he's under contract for next year. If you're making a trade for him, are they going to give him an extension, et cetera? So I don't think they have too much to move. Maybe some guys on the, they have a lot of 1-year deals, but I don't know if there's anybody other than maybe, like I said, Deebo, where you're like, wow, that guy could maybe get you a lot. But, you never know until you're, checking around the league.
Look, for those of you who don't know, Washington right now, according to Spotrac, is that how we pronounce it now? Right? Spotrac or Spotrac?
I think
never
he told me figured it out. Yeah.
Spotrac is how you pronounce it. I mean, I've been using it for years, just didn't know how to pronounce it until I had that guy, Michael Giannetti, on the show starting last year. He's great. But Washington has the 5th most cap space in 2026 and really the least amount of dead cap money. And the reason for that is all of these short-term deals. They've had so many of these short-term deals that's given them the flexibility that they want to have as they are still, trying to figure things out. Although I think they've got a lot more figured out now than they did a year ago. All right, your prediction.
Well, when you just said that,
that was, you do delay every once in a while before you answer, but that may have been your longest delay. So go ahead.
I mean, the Mr. T.
Got to get to it on radio.
The Mr. T line of, just when what you're predicting, just saying pain. I mean, that's what kind of comes to mind. Look, I think for Washington right now, the other team needs to help Washington a lot. Kansas City looks like they've been on a roll lately. With Mahomes getting, his receivers back, the defense is a top 5 ranked defense. This is the definition of a hard matchup, but they're going to need Kansas City to do what NFL teams do and stub their toe sometimes. I mean, the Chiefs lost to the Jaguars a couple of weeks ago, so it's not like it's, crazy that something could happen, but it doesn't feel like it. They're 4-1 in the last 5. Washington is, 1-3 in their last 4. As we discussed before, from the Commanders' perspective, they just cannot make mistakes. Easier said than done. I get it, but you can't lose the turnover battle. You can't give up chunk plays because of missed tackles, et cetera, et cetera. So, I do think that having McLaurin and Samuel back is going to open up things for the run game. And we know Mariota can use his legs as well, but enough to keep the Chiefs, to stay with the Chiefs, I don't think so. I don't know if this game is in your smell test. I didn't notice, but
it is
12 and a half feels like a lot, but at the same time,
down to 11 in most places, even some 10.5s out there.
Okay. Well, either way, if you tell me it's, 34-21 Washington or Kansas City wins, that's not going to surprise me.
Thank you. Talk to you later.
Yeah, man. See ya.
Ben Standing, everybody. When we come back, you'll hear Jay Gruden talk about the state of our team and kind of give you an idea of how they would pull it off tonight. That's next. The former head coach of the Washington Redskins, Jay Gruden, joins me every Friday on my podcast. And because we've got a Monday night game, we can kind of play his preview. Looking back at the Dallas game, he's got a ton of thoughts on where they are defensively, offensively, and then some thoughts on tonight's game as well. But we started with the defense.
Problem is, right now, other than Bobby Wagner's experience and his ability to play between the tackles, they really don't have anything that's a strength. They can't rely on a four-man pass rush. They can't rely on their pass coverage. They can't rely on really anything right now because they're not very talented at any position. Lattimore's giving up big plays and getting penalties. The rookie Amos is coming along okay. But the biggest concern for me is the ability to pressure the quarterback and create turnovers by doing that. And they just don't have the people to do it. You know, Jacob Martin had a couple hits. You know, Von Miller's a little bit older. You know, you're hoping Payne can do something on the inside, but it's just not coming together for them. And they're not putting themselves in good situations to rush the passer because, you know, they're giving up some hits in the running game as well. So they're not stopping the run very good. They're not rushing the passer very good, and their coverage isn't very good right now. So I don't know. They got to figure something out and try to do some different things on the back end. Maybe blitz a little bit more with Luvu and Bobby Wagner, try to create pressure on the quarterback and force some errant throws. But like I said, there's just not a lot that they can hang their hat on. Okay, we're really good at this. Let's feature this and sprinkle some other things in. I just don't know what they're really good at.
So I want to come back to that in a moment, but specific to a couple of players, what's happened to Sandra still this year? Last year on the outside primarily played exceptionally well as a rookie. This year, you know, along with Lattimore, it seems like teams are just going after him. Why?
You know, I don't know. He's not a very big guy, but he wasn't very big last year, and he had a great year last year, I thought, when he had to move to the outside. And you know, I bounced around positions might have an effect on him. You know, it's kind of like, you know, we had Kendall Fuller, we moved him on the inside, he played pretty good. Then we moved back outside, he got traded, he's outside, and he just kind of never really found a home. You know, sometimes it's not easy just to, okay, go play nickel today. You know, you go play outside today. You go cover this guy here today. You know, sometimes they just need a constant place to really feel secure in what they're doing defensively. Maybe just a lot of moving around, a lot of stuff has affected them a little bit. But I don't think he's really been the problem too much. He's got targeted a little bit more than he did last year. But I think the whole team has got some issues. They all have a bullseye on their front right now.
I've asked you this a couple of times, I think, already this year. And look, the injuries, they've lost, you know, their top two starting defensive ends, you know, Wise and then Armstrong, a devastating loss after last week. They lost John Baptiste, who was the backup defensive end. They've had injuries on that side of the ball as much as the offense has had injuries on its side of the ball. But you are a coach. You're an offensive coach, but you were a head coach. How much of this, for people like me, is coaching and scheme versus personnel?
Well, I think it's a lot about personnel. I've always believed it's about the players, not the plays so much. And when you run out of players, it's very difficult to scheme up anything. Okay, what are we going to do today with our third string defensive tackle? You know, we're going to stunt them in the A gap. We're going to play them two. I mean, it's just very hard. It's very difficult. So they just don't have the firepower now. I don't know. You can pull out Buddy Ryan and run the 46 zone, the old Chicago Bear defense. They get gutted right now. So, yeah, there's just not a lot they can hang their hat on. They just got to try to fight through this period of time right now. Hopefully get some guys back. Hopefully find some guys that are young and can develop, or maybe hit a home run on a practice squad guy, or pick somebody up off somebody else's practice squad and hit a homer somehow. Weather the storm till Jaden gets back, till Terry gets back, till Debo gets back, and they can put up the points and win some games, some high-scoring games.
I'm wondering if you've observed the following. The one thing that, for me, watching them, is I don't see like a defense that's dejected, that's thrown in the towel, that isn't trying to fly around and play with a level of urgency and competitiveness. And you do see that, you know, with some teams when, you know, one side of the ball or both sides of the ball just are terrible and they're going through the motions. I don't see that with the defense. Do you?
No, not at all. And I think that's why they still have a chance, because they do play hard. You know, the issue with them is if they give up an 8 to 10 or 12 play drive, they get tired and they lose that ability to play fast and physical. They get worn out instead of playing 100% feisty and all that stuff. Now, I'm tired. I'm breathing heavy. Now my pad level gets higher. And now we really get gutted. You know, so if they can stay fresh, the offense can keep them on the sideline with some good long drives of their own, and they can play fresh and they can run around and do some stunts and TE stunts and plant in the A gap and B gap and let Bobby come into the A gap and create havoc and run and play fast, then they have a chance. But when they get tired, they got no chance.
So you coach some teams here, and we've talked about them many times, that were terrible on defense. The 2015, the 2016 team in particular. I mean, you know, guys like David Bruton and Greg Toller are back there, and it just and it's a disaster. So do you ever get to the point where you're thinking drastically as a head coach, like, we just got to do something to be, we're sending 7 or 6 on every single, you know, run down, pass down, it doesn't matter. We're going to die going down swinging. Like, do you think that way? And is that actually plausible to put into play for a team that's so vulnerable?
Yeah, when the defensive coordinator calls an all-out blitz, something like that, I turn my head and go to the water cooler and wait for the crowd noise to go boom.
That's funny.
Yeah, because you don't want to put your corners at that damn risk that some of the receivers will get to go get. It's scary. Then you play cover 2s, then you play cover 3s and cover 4s and change the coverages up, and it's a gain of 5, a gain of 8, gain of 12, and you're sitting there and your best players on offense are standing on the sideline looking at you like, when are we going to go back in? I just hold on, just wait till they score.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's a tough situation to be in. You're just hoping that somehow you get a tip ball interception or they get a holding call to take them out of field position. But I think still Washington has enough talent on that team with Bobby Luvu and Marshawn and Kwan's got to play better, and some of these guys and Duran and Newton. They just, you know, got to weather the storm and make some plays.
The D coordinator calls an all-out zero coverage blitz. Where's the head coach? He's back at the water cooler with his ears perked up, waiting to hear the crowd noise. That's pretty funny. You know, this guy that I have on, he's one of the all-time great punt returners in NCAA history. He calls Maryland games on the radio broadcast, and he's just excellent sort of breaking down the film. And he said to me the other day, he said, when it comes to Lattimore at this point, he may just want to really study hard and start guessing and start gambling and just try to make a play. If he's going to get torched, at least make 1 or 2 plays by guessing right once or twice. Would you advocate for that for a guy like Lattimore?
No. So I think Lattimore feels more comfortable playing bump and run. You can see that. And unfortunately, people are taking advantage of that. And they're not afraid of it anymore, and they're throwing the ball up there because they know, A, it's going to be caught, or B, it's going to be a PI. You know, and they're not worried about him with his ball skills getting the picks. So he just got to play the ball better when he plays bump and run. The play at the end of the half was just an absolute killer. I mean, it was an absolute one of the worst plays I've seen in pro football in a long time in that situation. To give up that
because why? Because they were playing it incorrectly. They should have been playing.
25 seconds ago in the half, it was 2nd and 17.
Yeah.
I mean, just play off and let us catch the itch.
Exactly.
Let Aubrey kick a 68-yard field goal at the end of the half. That's fine. You know,
well, whose fault was that?
Well, you can still play bump and run. I would have clouded both sides. You know, I'm putting somebody over CD and somebody over Pickens in that situation. There's no way I'm going to let Dak Prescott throw just a fade ball down the left sideline one-on-one Pickens against Lattimore with the way Lattimore's been playing and the chance of a PI or something like that. There's just that. I think, you know, I try not to criticize coaches' calls. That one I did not like. You know, and if the coach is going to say, oh, you know what, Marshawn, I trust you. You're just not going to get beat deep. Don't get beat deep. I mean, play on this top shoulder. You know what I mean? If he catches a back shoulder for a gain of 15, that's fine, but you can't give up a 40-yard bomb in that situation. So that play really bothered me because that play made it 27-15, I think, at halftime. And then the next play, because Washington had the ball coming out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah,
they slow a blitz pick up, and Jaden gets hurt. They don't pick up the blitz, and Jaden gets hurt. And then the next thing you know, Marcus comes in a pick six, and the game's over. So, I mean, the game was right there still for Washington. As ugly as it looked, it was 20-15 going into halftime with the ball. So that 3-play drive, I think, was really rough. And then Washington couldn't recover.
I'm glad you said that, because I said that after the game and then again on Monday and Tuesday that, after that drive at the end of the first half that made it 20-15, even down 27-15, they're on the move. 1st and 10, Jaden had completed that 3rd and 10 sort of off schedule to Moore. They're probably going to go in and score again, and I don't think they're going to stop Dallas enough to win the game, but it's at least a game. And we've seen, rocky up and down first halves with Jaden and the offense going back to last year, where in the second half they come out and light it up. But with respect to that last Dallas drive, I just want everybody to be clear on what Jay's saying. You can't be in man coverage. You can't give a fade ball, even though it was perfectly thrown by Prescott. You can't give him that opportunity. You got to make him throw underneath and get 10 yards, 12 yards, and let Aubrey try a 65-yarder at the end of the half and be down 23-15, maybe not 27-15. That was infuriating. All right, let's talk about the offense. How much of what you watched Sunday was, not enough bodies that are capable at wide receiver on the field?
Yeah, all of it really. They're just not very talented, unfortunately, and it's very difficult. We said this before the season when Terry was holding out. If Terry holds out, that receiver room is very average, even with Debo. It's probably bottom third, maybe even lower than that as far as skill set at the receiver position and tight end position you can add and running back position you can add in. So the skill position without Terry goes down, got to be bottom ranked 28th or 29th probably. Now with Terry and Debo out, now you're talking about who's going to win in man coverage. Who the hell are you going to look to if you're Jaden Daniels? Okay. I mean, is it Zach Ertz, the older tight end on a basic cross route getting open, hopefully? Is it Chris Moore? Is it McCaffrey? Who's it going to be? And right now they don't have that guy, and that's the big concern, because as good as Jaden is, I don't even think he can put on a Superman cape and consistently make plays that need to be made to have a successful offense. Cliff's a great offensive coordinator, but right now they just don't have the Joes, to make this thing work.
Did you see Jaden a little bit hesitant to pull the trigger a few times because perhaps he was not trusting of the wide receiver group, or was he just missing things and it was on him?
I saw one. He threw a we called a thunder out in the boundary, and I think it was Chris Moore. It might have been Chris Moore or
Lane,
the chosen one. He just went too deep. Jaden was on quick game footwork, and the guy went, 2 extra steps on his route, and the ball looked like it was an errant throw, but Jaden threw it on time. The receiver was just too deep, and then the one to Zach Ertz, he missed. It was a sail cut, and Zach sat it down on his zone, and Jaden was anticipating him to take it out a little bit more, and he missed that one. And it's another one on the sideline. But sometimes when you have these new receivers, and the timing's not there, Jaden's expecting a certain thing, and if it's not there, it's very difficult for a rhythm type quarterback. And now, if you're not sure the guy's going to be there in the right spot with the right footwork and the right timing, now you're going to be hesitant, and then you're going to be late, and then all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose. You got to scramble for a 3-yard gain. So they got to get together. If these guys are going to play here the next few weeks, Chris Moore, he's got to get more detailed. The Robbie Chosen, he's got to get more detailed. I don't know how that's going to work, but yeah, somebody's got to step up and make some plays if Terry doesn't play.
I'll ask you the question that I asked callers earlier in the week. Is this season salvageable? Meaning, can they make the postseason, or at least go to the final week of the season with a chance to make the postseason?
I think so. I think anytime that guy runs out of tunnel as your quarterback, you got a chance. Let's hope he's okay after this week. Probably take one on the chin against Kansas City. Battle, play hard, come back after Monday night and get Jaden back and get Debo back and get Terry back 100% and make it run offensively. And offensively, they got to really be precise, and they got to take advantage of every drive that they have, and it really help the defense out. But I really do. I would never count out a team with Jaden Daniels as starting quarterback.
All right. What is the formula for what would be a pretty shocking upset? We see it happen in the NFL all the time, but what would you be thinking we have to do with Mariota at quarterback and a defense that's in tatters, and you're facing a healthy Kansas City offense on Monday night at Arrowhead? Give me a somewhat plausible formula for pulling off the upset.
I saw the Jacksonville Jaguars beat the Kansas City Chiefs, so it's not impossible for Washington to go in there and get a upset, really. I know they got Rashee Rice back, and everybody's like, oh, my God, the whole weapons are back. Jacksonville beat them, so they're not unbeatable, for God's sakes. I think you go in there and you play good, sound defense. You got to hustle and hit. 2 hats on the ball every time. Try to get some punch-outs. These guys can be careless with the football. Hollywood Brown can be careless with the football. Pacheco can be careless with football. We got to get the ball out and create some turnovers on defense. And offensively, you got to play a physical brand of football. You got to match their physicality up front. It's going to be difficult, but got to try to possess the football, be very, very good on, have the best third down plan of the year, make sure we possess the football, keep our defense fresh, and obviously convert in the red zone if given the opportunity.
Last time Washington played at Arrowhead, it was a Monday night game in 2017, and that was one hell of a football game. And Doxson had the ball in his hands in the end zone for the lead with under a minute to go. I think you've told me before about that play that Kirk should have gone to Jordan Reed.
Oh, it's wide open. It was a sluggo seam type of route. We had a hitch and go by Jordan Reed on one side against the safety, and if it was man-to-man and the safety stayed in the middle, we were going to work Jordan Reed one-on-one to the field, and Jordan Reed just diced them up. I mean, hook, line, and sinker wide open. And Kirk went right to the seam ball, which is Doxson, which, he threw a great ball, and Josh went up for the catch and just couldn't hold on to it. But I would have loved to see him throw the ball to Jordan there, but, he threw a good ball, but I wish he would have thrown it to Jordan.
Yeah. Jay Gruden from the other day talking about the team currently and what would have to happen tonight to pull off the unthinkable. When we come back, Max and I will give you our final score predictions with a footnote. If you want to give us yours, 301-230-0980. Also, something that Marcus Mariota said about playing at Arrowhead when we come back. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com.
All right, happy Monday, everybody. Here is what is happening. We start off with a look around the NFC East. Dallas, they fall to the Broncos in a game that got so out of hand. Joe Milton threw a touchdown pass. Cowboys lose 44-24, and the Eagles, they beat up on the Giants 38-20 to make matters worse for Brian Dable's squad. They also lose rookie running back Cam Scatterby for the season with a gruesome-looking dislocated ankle injury. Plus, we got some big news out of the college football world as it broke late last night that LSU is parting ways with head coach Brian Kelly after suffering a lopsided defeat to Texas A&M, where LSU looked checked out for most of the second half. Now the third major program to begin their head coaching search in October. Plus, the Caps, they announced this morning they are signing Brett Leeson to a 1-year, 2-way contract. He'll be placed on waivers and loaned to Hershey for the time being. Plus, the Wizards, they fall to the Hornets 139-113. LaMelo Ball stunned with nearly 40 points and a triple-double performance that included 13 rebounds and 13 assists on the Wizards side. CJ McCollum leads the Wizards in scoring, but with 24, but the lack of defense helps spur the Hornets to a 26-point victory. The Washington Commanders, they get going tonight versus the Kansas City Chiefs on Monday Night Football. Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel making their return to the lineup, but the Burgundy and Gold will be without starting quarterback Jaden Daniels and maybe without Deron Payne, who missed most of this week with a toe injury. Burgundy and Gold pregame live with Denton and Linnell begins at 106 on 106.7 The Fan after Grant and Danny at 6:30. And Maryland basketball gets underway right here on the Team 980 in an exhibition against UMBC. That will also get underway at 6:30. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1. You can catch Denton's office throughout all football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
I love playing there. It's such a fun atmosphere. The fans are great. It's loud. And I truly enjoy it. And at the end of the day, like, it's going to come down to us being able to communicate. It is a tough environment. But at the same time, like, that's what you play for. You love these moments. You love these atmospheres. And I'm really looking forward to it.
Marcus Mariota the other day talking about what it's like to play at Arrowhead. He's had 2 career starts at Arrowhead. I mentioned this earlier in the show. He's 2-0. The second one came in a playoff comeback, down 21-3 at halftime. They came back and beat the Chiefs in 2017, January of 2018, 22-21. He was also asked about what has contributed to his past success playing at Arrowhead Stadium. Here's what he said.
And Marcus, just a quick piggyback off of that. You've had some success playing at Arrowhead. What's allowed for you to be successful there, and what do you love about it?
First and foremost, I just love the atmosphere. It reminds me a lot of college. I love playing on the road. I think kind of that us versus everybody mentality is something that I really feel like I've thrived on in my career. But I love playing at Arrowhead. I actually have family there. So I do get to see some family. And at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, it is a tough place to play. But as long as you get everybody going on the same page and you're communicating, it allows you to be able to execute and do what you need to do.
There you go. Prediction time. What happens tonight? Let me just mention that the Chiefs right now are 1-6 in their last 7 games when they're laying 7 points or more. Not outright. They're 7-0 outright. They're 1-6 against the number. And if you've been betting the NFL this year, you know that big favorites have struggled this year. Teams favored by at least 7 points are 1-5 against the number this year and 3-3 outright in prime time games this year. Chiefs are 10.5, 11-point favorites in this one. I've got Washington hanging in there, covering the game, going under the total. Right now, the total in this game is 48. The Chiefs winning by the same score they won in the first time they ever met Washington. Final score 27-20. The Chiefs win. Marcus Mariota has 60 yards rushing in this game. That's my footnote. But a loss, 27-20. They cover. The game goes under. Marcus Mariota has a good rushing game and plays well enough to keep them kind of in it, at various points during tonight's game. Max, go ahead.
I kind of want to go. I think it's going to be a little bit more high scoring than you do. I think it's going to be, and I think that Washington is going to just barely cover that number. So give me Chiefs 34, Commanders 24. It's going to be a tight one. Right. They're going to score late.
We have them both covering.
That we do.
We got them both plus the points. Paulie wants to weigh in because he had a bad phone earlier or just decided to ditch us. You got 30 seconds. Go.
Yeah, I know why Mariota has success in Kansas City. They didn't have Pat Mahomes.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah.
Hey, man, come on. I'm going to be a homer here. I got us 34-33, man. We got to punch these dudes in the mouth, and we need some big plays. So with Debo and Terry back, man, we got to be aggressive on offense and defense. We're going to have to give it up. We're going to have to get it right back. 34-33, man. Let's go. Hell to the W.
Right. Talk to everybody tomorrow. Chris Russell next.